All right, more 550 projects right after this. Welcome back. If you haven't seen my videos before, I'm Rusty Oliver Man. This is our customer's 550, which we've been working on, and it's all covered with crap now, but I'll clean it up before it goes back. So, several things that we need to address. I'm waiting on steering box parts, so there's not much I can do about that. I can probably work on this piece and get it cleaned up and, you know, whatever I have to do. Gauges put in it, have it ready to set back on. But I need to take some inventory of what we got going on here. Got a brand new sending unit in this box. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spindle bushings, the thrust bearings, so that's good. We can tackle that. There is a temperature sending unit. These are PTO. Is this a PTO seal? I can't remember what that fits. I think this is all for the PTO. A steering wheel, a new gauge cluster. I bet those other two are brake seals because there's another one. We got the hood rubbers. But we don't have an important thing, which is a steering wheel nut. We need to get that. I noticed when I was swapping steering shafts that the threads are all chewed up on that original one. So I'm going to get a new steering nut. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole of sadness. But I do have stuff here that I ordered to rebuild his seat. So that's what I'm going to try to do, is get the seat off. Yeah, his seat is very, very bad, as we could imagine, since it is 9,000 hour tractor. So there's a old tack cable, which I'm pretty sure I got a new one of those. If not, I'll have to. Yeah, it's bad. And you can see evidence there how bad it is. I don't actually remember if that rubber was helping me or not. I can't remember. And also I can't remember, I thought it was just one carriage bolt that holds this to this piece. But it's not easy to get to. It's back in there. This is kind of in our way. So we're gonna have to come up with something there. But yeah, I mean, we got to start somewhere, and this is where. I mean, I'm hoping that it's a good enough candidate to rebuild it, and it's not the kind of thing where I should just be finding another seat frame to start with. That will become obvious as we start working on it. But when you see stuff like this, you wonder how bad it's really going to be. But yeah, another thing that's bad on this one is his PTO shaft is bent. I don't know if you can see that or not. I managed to find another one of those. So all I got to do is try to get the other one out and put this one in. Maybe easier said than done. But that's a project for later. We get the steering box back on. We can get the dash back together. We can get it running again. Then we can tackle his front axle, is my thinking. Because I'm sure that it is slopped out. Almost every 550 and Super 55 I've worked on has had, you know, worn spindle bushings, or the thrust bearing at the bottom was bad. So that's something. I turned it over here a while back, so we should be good in that regard. Steering hoses are not very good. And at first I wasn't going to tackle him because I thought he could do that, but I feel like now I'm in it far enough that it's time to, you know, deal with it. What I don't like though is that end is like tube thread, like your brake lines. So I'm going to have to figure out some way to either adapt it to something different or see if I can find like what I would ideally like to find is, I'm pretty sure they make a inverted flare to JIC adapter. If I can figure out what size this I got, thread that into the steering motor and then put a 90-degree JIC on it, and that'll give me more. I think that'll be more better. I think. I might be wrong on that, but I might have to do it in 2 fittings because I think when it was in there, it was kind of a severe bend behind this dash. And if I could go like a 90 and then another 90 into it, I think that would be better. But we got to get it mounted back on there before we can decide that. But I'm pretty sure we're going to get new hoses, because why would we put those back in like that? Also, I feel like to the pump, I feel like if this had a 45 degree coming out of it, it would tuck in there a little bit better where it's not. It's a very steep bend somewhere. I think it's on the bottom of that one as it comes through here. And I don't like that, but like I said, where does the guy stop? You got to pick some place, and that's my struggle all the time, is knowing when to quit. So step 1 here is going to be to waddle myself back here, stepping on small animals and objects along the way, probably destroying them. And I can't believe it, but I think that's actually turning right. I thought sure that we would have the shoulders rounded off. Don't worry though, we'll get there. We'll still get there. It would be nice if I could actually be physically in that hole. So I'm gonna have to work on acrobatics here and see if I can make that happen. Whoa! Don't lose a limb. Don't lose a limb. There. That's much more better. I can almost see what I'm doing. Not so much. And before you ask, I don't think that there's any way that I can bring it back to help myself. I was wondering that. So I'm afraid if I do that, it's just gonna keep on keeping on. I've rebuilt a fair number of these, but it's been a while, so I might make mistakes taking it apart. I don't remember. Fun fact, this guy actually has another 550 that I worked on. I don't know if I told this story, but I had a friend that lived in town, and he was going to downsize and move into a smaller place, so he sold all his tractors. We had a nice 550 that he had for years, and the last time I worked on it, I rebuilt the seat for him and a handful of other little things. And the throttle rod was broken. He called about that, and then before I ever got one ordered for him, he sold the tractor and it disappeared. And I was I told him, I said, I wish I'd have known you wanted to sell that one, because I said I would have probably bought it. And he said, I said, where'd it go? And he said, oh, I don't remember. So anyway, you know, he was dealing with some health problems, and he couldn't remember where it went. So then here about a few months later, I saw it for sale way up north on Facebook Marketplace. and I recognized it immediately because it had the painted seat I had just worked on, and it had the vice grips clamped to it. And before I got that guy messaged, it sold. And I thought, well, that's the end of that one. Well, then here I go over to this guy's house, and he's showing me around stuff he's got, and he's got a 550 in there he just bought. And sure enough, that was it. And I said, well, I know where that came from. It came from down around me, then it went way up north, and now it's now it's up there living with him. So it's amazing how far the tractors can travel in short order, you know. Now, I have to get myself out of here again. That's the second hurdle. All right. Order of business number 1 will be to totally strip this seat down to its most basic elements here. Boy, his seat cushion is a permanent fixture in that, apparently. Somebody's got her tightened. Look at how nasty the rubber is. I'm not saying that that one wouldn't be any better than the new ones, because I've had new ones fail too. It's just an unfortunate fact of life with stuff made in Chinesia. But I guess we'll figure out his knot system here, because I hate to destroy that in case he really has a sentimental attachment to that seat cover. I mean, the top side isn't bad. It's kind of rough around the edges, but it is working. So I'll work on that, and then I'll bring you back. All right, normally what I like to do is take the torch and heat up the roll pins just a little bit, and then when they cool, they usually drive out easy. However, looking at this, it's pretty rough. There, the roll pin is broken. So, and then I pushed it out a little, and you can see how bad the shaft is cut into. It looks like somebody tried to repair something there at one point. This one should be fine. I can probably get that out. If I take that one out first, and these two, I should be able to get the seat off the actual pan off of the thing. Those two are kind of intact. This here is a disaster. That one, we can get that out. It's just going to take a little finessing, you know, to get it. Because what we don't want to do is, number one, we don't want to catch this on fire, because that'll burn for a long time. And number two, we don't want to like burn a hole through the seat pan or something stupid, because we're getting too excited. So we need to be a little bit careful about what we're doing, but I have found that if you just kiss it, just a little bit of flame kissing there on each of the roll pins, they'll usually come out much easier. So I'm going to work on that, and then see, my goal is to take this inside and work on it, and I can have it, you know, pretty well rebuilt back together, and then we just bolt it on here. I think, looking at the tractor now, what those other two seals are, I have to look up the part numbers, but I'm thinking they're rock shaft seals, because that one's leaking, so we'll have to attend to that. And I bet that's what that is. I just have to look up the part numbers and compare, but that would make sense, because there's two seals in that bag. There's two things there. Now, do we think we would have success? That one might come off. And the one that's leaking, yeah, it's loose. That one will slide off easy. Usually if they're covered with oil like that, they will. The ones that are dry can be kind of a problem, but that is something that would be not too difficult to go ahead and tackle while we're working on it this far, you know, and that would go a long way to hopefully cleaning that up. His remote valve, let's see, does it work still? Well, it moves in and out, but it's pretty soiled. We can try it and see what we got going on once we get it running again. It's plumbed up for one way, which I don't know I don't really know enough about these valves to know if that's correct. Some of them had a little handle here. I don't know what that is. But if this could possibly be a two-way valve, that would probably be more useful for him. But what I'm getting at is that hose to the back is awful. So I would think that we would try to make that better if we can. But that's a project for when it's back together and running. One of the last things we do to it. I wanted to kind of go from front to back, you know, so that there was some order about this. However, we will also tackle those. We'll jack it up and see, but I would say spindles, bushings, I don't know. I don't know if we want to do that or not. We'll see what it looks like when we get it up in the air and can turn it by hand. But we got to get the steering to quit leaking first. Then we'll work on the steering up here. Everything's coated with oil, so it's very possible that a lot of stuff is leaking. So we'll sort that out. Yeah, we'll sort that out later. That is a later project. Number one project is get this area back in order so we can go on about our lives. We might tackle those seals now while the seat's off, but yeah. This video is about the seat, so that's what I'm going to stick with. All right, that was no fun. So, I don't know why I'm surprised, but there's a lot of non-factory welding on this. Obviously, somebody wanted to make it last just a little bit longer, and that's going to cause us some troubles. In addition to looking rickety, there really should be a way to get this apart. And they have everything welded up solid in such a way that I don't think anything will ever come out ever. So that begs the question, is this one worth rebuilding, or should I find another one which might be cheaper for him in the long run? Every pin, which is to be expected, is practically wore through. I don't want to say this is the worst one I've done, but I think it's the worst one I've done. So I might see if I can find me a parts seat to make it a little easier before we commit to going this route. All I need is this, really. This piece, and, you know, that's the worst cobbled up mess. This piece would probably go again. This piece could go again. It's a little wonky, but we can fix that. The pins I could weld up and get ground down again to the right size. This thing is bent. That's unfortunate. So, you know, that ain't the greatest. But this is my big concern. It's pretty bad. So I'll think on that, and I'll gather some parts, and there'll be a part 2 of building a seat, because usually, even if I find another used seat, we're still going to have to rebuild it. But just based on what I'm seeing here, makes me kind of feel like this is the part seat suspension, and we will get a better one. The seat pan's fine. I mean, it's great. There's nothing wrong with it. Kind of rusty on that side where stuff had been living in between the cushion and the seat, but other than that, I'm not worried about that piece. That'll go again just fine. But we need to weigh our options before I go down the rabbit hole of a bunch of welding and machining and things like that, when it could be cheaper for the customer to just buy a better piece. You know, sometimes that's the way. Sometimes it's not always too cheaper to fix what you have. So I will try to make a good decision for him, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to slap one together. All right, one more clip. I was able to finally get this off of there. I had to grind into that a little bit and kind of go back and forth to get that out of there, because they had that pin welded in there when they put in bushings at some point, and they got real happy with the welder, and I didn't think it would come apart. But I might be able to get by with just making pins, but like I said, it may be cheaper to just find another seat and make 1 out of 2. So that's where I'm going to leave it, and I'll figure that out. But That's where we stand. Buddy the dog. Yeah. Are you not gonna wait? Okay, there we go. Anyway, I watched the video that I had so far, and I decided that some people were gonna see it and they were gonna say, well, my seat doesn't look anything like what you just did. So I thought that I would explain some renditions of this seat. Let's, this actually might be the old one too. Let's go look at the Super 55 first, and then I'll explain. There's a Super 55. All right, so you might say, well, my seat looks different than what you were doing. And you'd be right, because there were several variations. When you order the kit with the bushings, it comes with the pin that your spring rides on, and there's two different kits. The older style has a roll pin like on both sides, and the one like what we're working on for that customer has like a carriage bolt head on one side and a roll pin on the other side. Also different is the way this attaches to the seat and the seat itself, furthermore, because the seat like we're working on has brackets hanging down, and then this tube attaches into that. This one has this bar like welded to the seat pan with pins on each side, and then you can take these roll pins out and pull each half off of that bar. The one like we were working on, the bar is now one piece, and they put little drop downs on it where it goes, and then the pin comes out of this thing. You'll see in a minute again if you're not sure what I'm talking about. And I'm not exactly sure when those revisions took place, but for all intents and purposes, this is the early style seat. And like what we're working on for that guy is the latest variety, or the last variety of that seat to my knowledge. But you can see here how like this is perfectly straight. Our other one on the one we were working on was not. I think, and I can't answer that for sure because I've never had them apart at the same time, but I think that the base and this arm are the same on all of them, and the adjuster, but then the differences were in this and the pan, and then possibly in that bracket under there. It might be the same because it has the square bumper under it too, as you can see. Maybe see that square piece of rubber that's supposed to be like a bumper. But the main difference when you look at them is going to be the pin here and then the way this is made. Let's go look at my 550 because I'm not so sure that there's not an in-between variation, and that's what that one's got on it. All right, so this on my 550 is kind of a halfway updated version. As you can see, it still uses this style seat with the bar. The pieces come in here. There's two roll pins, but it has the carriage bolt style pin in the saddle there. So that would be, this piece would be different between them. When I said that a minute ago, it would have to be because that's got, I'm pretty sure that's got a square cut out. But anyway, you can see that this one is a lot like my Super 55 one, except this one only has two holes here and then that. And I don't know when the changes were made, but I'm saying when you order those bushing kits, a lot of times they'll ask you if it's for a Super 55 or a 550, and I want to say that the one bag you get says Super 55/550, and the other one says just Super 55, I think. But usually the kits come with more stuff than you need so that it services all of these different seats. And I don't think I've never had this one off. This one is just how I bought it, and it's still springy, so I'm not gonna mess with it until that time happens that it needs it. So if we take a quick look back at the one that we're working on here, the biggest difference when you order the kits, you're going to need to know is whether you got this style pin or the style that has roll pins on both sides. Otherwise, the kits should have everything you need to do that thing. This pin is pretty bad. I'm gonna have to, it was welded in there part way and I got that broke loose and it's mushroomed out and it's wore. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff. I did locate one of these new old stock, and so that'll probably get that, because this one's got a lot of extracurricular welding on it, where I have a feeling it either broke off or it was cracked and somebody decided to do whatever. But you can tell some of that's non-factory because it's just sloppy. This piece I think we can live with, you know. So if I get that, and then, you know, the biggest thing is going to be making pins or getting these pins back in shape. That ain't that big a deal. I've done it before, so it won't hurt. But if we look at our kit somewhere in here, yeah, this is, I got the style, the right style, the one that's got the big carriage bolt looking thing. And see, it says 550. So the other one, that's how it is. The other kit you can get says Super 55/550, and this one just says 550 because this is the latest rendition. And that one that I worked on for my pal, which consequently this guy now owns the tractor as well, it was the same style. It had the big carriage bolt like head, and then it comes with that pin for the front. So there should be everything we need in here in some combination, with the exception of the pins. So we can make that happen, and then I think our lives will be dandy. But we're gonna just keep plugging away at this project as we can, and just keep making it better as we go, because that's all we can do. I mean, it's a little bit rough horse. Anyway, as I was saying, I didn't think it was as bad as it was when he brought it, because it runs like a dream. I mean, it's a little sweetheart as far as a 550 diesel. It just runs beautiful. But a lot of the rest of the tractor is showing its wear now. So we got some homework to do. And like I said, we'll get that steering box back together, and then I think things will just start falling into place. We can just, as we go back together now, we'll make the stuff better as we put it back on, and we'll be done in no time. We'll have to tackle, once we get it back together, decide whether the steering cylinders need attention. I mean, those obviously came off of a Ford as well, because they're blue and they appear to be serviceable, which the originals sadly were not. The originals you had to cut apart and re-weld. So I like the idea of it being serviceable. They're also supposed to be the same as like on a Corvette from the 60s era. And I've seen now where you can get them fairly cheap for the whole setup, you know, an aftermarket replacement. So that would probably be the best value for somebody who doesn't want to, or doesn't have the ability to cut and weld and all that kind of stuff. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We'll get that part done and then see what happens.